Hi, my name is Denny, and you are now watching the 7th episode of Take Care Tuesdays. So sticking to the theme of love for this month, I wanted to talk about 3 aspects that I feel are the building blocks of a healthy relationship with yourself and with other people. Those 3 aspects would be vulnerability, forgiveness, and compassion. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the definitions because I'm sure you've already heard of these terms before. I think that sometimes we hold on to things and decide to not be open based upon stories that we've told ourselves from our past experiences. However, the healing that we seek can be unlocked when we are open to being vulnerable, forgiving, and compassionate. It can be incredibly difficult to navigate life without these 3 aspects, and I believe that they all go hand in hand. Vulnerability allows honesty about your feelings. We can get so caught up with the idea of strength being a part of our identity that we're afraid to ever open up and really share how we feel about certain things and how it impacts us. Just recently, I had to challenge myself and decide to be as vulnerable as I possibly could be. It can be very uncomfortable allowing somebody that access to you, but it is also such a freeing experience because I was able to relieve myself of carrying the burden of unsaid feelings. Being vulnerable can be very nerve-wracking, especially when it's being vulnerable with somebody that's outside of yourself. We can see this often in relationships, and no judgment, because it's very difficult to tear down walls that you gradually built over the years after experiences. But the results that we really want in our relationships with others and ourselves are on the other side of being open. What helped me to break down those walls and to become more vulnerable was reminding myself constantly that the person that I was being vulnerable with had no intention to hurt me. I know that isn't always easy. It honestly still takes constant reminders to remember that I'm not in danger of being harmed in any way with being vulnerable with that person. It took a lot of unlearning defense mechanisms that I previously used to protect myself. When I finally decided to be open and vulnerable, it really allowed for my relationships to flourish and to thrive. Vulnerability makes way for forgiveness. You cannot truly have a deep relationship with yourself or with anyone else without having forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't mean that whatever happened to you magically goes away. It doesn't imply that the pain that was caused to you was no big deal. And it doesn't mean that you have to resume automatically how your previous relationship was prior to whatever happened. Forgiveness just really means that you have let go anger and the desire for vengeance. You may have already heard that forgiveness is not necessarily for the person that has done the wrong, but it's usually for the person who has experienced the hurt. Holding on to resentment for too long can literally kill you. And if it doesn't kill you, it can definitely result in you having a less peaceful life. You cannot heal from anything without forgiveness. It may actually be the starting point of healing. This also includes forgiveness of yourself, which I feel is very, very important. It is a necessary part of life, and while it may be uncomfortable, it can produce radical compassion within yourself and with others. Having compassion enables you to have better understanding of yourself and other people. It also relieves suffering. Compassion is deciding to empathize and see a new perspective. We all want to feel like we're seen, and compassion makes way for that. Compassion can bring awareness to our humanity and our inability to be perfect, but our attempt to still do good in the world. Compassion is the heart of good communication and meaningful relationships. Many of us want to have deep, loving relationships in our lives, but we're afraid to be completely naked, metaphorically, in front of other people in order to cultivate that depth. And you may be able to get by for a while without expressing these emotional actions, but eventually the blocks in the walls will start to show itself in other ways and will force you to move towards some type of change. As I mentioned, it does not always feel good and it's not always easy. But push through, because the love that you seek is on the other side of it. And I don't want to make it seem like once you're open with the person, then it's like a fairy tale and everything comes together, because sometimes it's not like that at all. Sometimes you can be completely open with the person and they can still make the decision to not change, or maybe they're not able to handle your openness and your honesty. But there's still freedom and love, even if it's self-love, that can be produced by extending grace to be vulnerable, forgiving, and compassionate. So that's all for this week's episode. I hope that you learned something and something that you can take away from this video. If you liked it, please share, like, or even save for future reference. And if you'd like to comment on this episode or even give suggestions for future episodes, please feel free to put a comment below or in my DMs. As always, thank you so much for your support. And until next time, take care.